Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here without Brother Bro, and it's time for BAFTA predictions. They're tomorrow. I'm going to do this video quick. I'm going to attempt to do it in as little takes as possible. Brother Bro's not here. He'll be here for the nominations. But, let's take a look at what we got here. Oh, goodness. Come here. In Best Film, to my dismay, I think I might be going with A Complete Unknown over The Substance for that last slot. And, just to be clear, there's The Brutalist, Emilia Perez, Conclave, and Nora. Yes, of course, everybody has those. And the last slot's up for debate. And to me, it's between The Substance and Complete Unknown, which both got 11 long list mentions. A Complete Unknown has been doing surprisingly well, getting DGA nominated, 4 SAG nominations. Holy shit. Now, The Substance has that international appeal to it, apparently. I mean, with the BAFTAs liking it better than the Oscars on the long list, you gotta wonder if that is top 5 for them. I thought it was after the long list came out. Now I'm not so sure, because A Complete Unknown feels like bound to overperform and get into more text than we expected, but maybe The Substance will too. It's just hard to say. I'm basically leaning towards what I think would not make me the most happy. I don't think that I'm going to be fist pumping the entire way through these nominations. So that's why I'm leaning Complete Unknown here. I should have gone with it at SAG, whatever. I don't think it's going to be Wicked or Dune. Those are just not going to be top 5 at BAFTA. And Kneecap The Apprentice, I could see Kneecap squeezing in. But I think it's not as likely. Best Director, The Brutalist, Emilia Perez, Honora, Conclave. Once again, these are the top 4 contenders at BAFTA. They will be nominated in major categories. And no one objects to this. No one objects to Farja for The Substance. And if you do, you're better be wrong. She's getting in. Absolutely, 100%. She's safe. And then for that last slot, I think I could be between Dune and All We Imagine Is Light. I think that's what everybody is. Now, Dune made the top 10 long list. He's getting ignored. He's getting completely, they're walking by him in the street without a glance, without a glare. And this is dangerous. He didn't even get DGA. He didn't get Golden Globe. I think those are more important than what critics groups are doing here. Peter Jackson for The Two Towers at least got DGA. I mean, it's scary. Kapadia only has Globe, didn't really even get a ton of critics' attention. However, with her just being here, right? With her just being in the lineup, I could see a lot of people gathering around that. Even though All We Imagine Is Light didn't do amazingly on BAFTA long lists, it's only in directing and screenplay and international, didn't make the top 10. So, again, actually not again, because I haven't said this yet. We are not in the juried years anymore. The jury's gone. And so in previous years, Kapadia would be number 1 to get nominated. She'd be the most locked because we would know the jury's going to save that pick. But this year, we have to remember we're not in a juried year. So does she still get in? I was leaning towards no for a while, but Villeneuve just feels like he's just continuing to miss. I mean, they nominated him for Blade Runner. They didn't nominate him for Dune. But again, with the jury, we don't know what would have happened. So honestly, I am torn. I know some people think Kapadia is easy. They're just mirroring the Globe 6. But again, there's no jury. Dune did better than All We Imagine Is Light. All We Imagine Is Light has not been that big of a contender this season overall. But that Globe, the Globe Director nom was something. It was a big something. So I just feel like that's going to be right, is to go with her. Even though I feel like there's maybe more justification for Villeneuve. Now, in the acting categories, we're not doing too many risks here. We got Demi Moore, Mikey Madison. Baptiste obviously is getting in here. Gascon, Cynthia Erivo. We're going with, the main picks here. I don't have a reason to go beyond number 6. And I don't understand people thinking that, Erivo... Well, I can understand you thinking that maybe Erivo will miss for Wicked, but, she is British. I don't understand people thinking that Gascon's going to miss here. That's not happening. Caitlin for Louis, she's a fave of the Academy. The movie's British. It was longlisted for more categories than one would expect. They've seen the movie over there. It exists to them. It may not exist to you if you live in the US, but it exists over there. And that's why I think she's going to get nominated, just like she did at the Golden Globe. And I just don't think anything else is going to happen. Like, Ronan's been dead for the outrun. She has a shot here because it's British. Nicole Kidman, Amy Adams, they just haven't been doing well. They haven't been doing as well as they need to, I think. So I'm going with this 6. It's kind of safe. It's kind of easy. We'll see if there's any shocking snubs. Now I got Best Lead Actor. I got Adrian Brody. I got Chalamet. I think Chalamet, if Complete Unknown gets into a bunch of categories, I'm super worried that he could win. Very worried. We have Ray Fiennes, who's locked in. Well, I don't think he's winning. Sebastian Stan, The Apprentice, absolutely in. With them putting The Apprentice in their Best Film 10, you better believe that he's going to get nominated for Best Actor with 6 slots. And The Apprentice has actually been doing pretty well. Jeremy Strong with that SAG nomination. I mean, Sebastian Stan probably wasn't far behind. So easily in. Daniel Craig also been doing super well. Got SAG nominated, showing up everywhere. The Brits aren't going to pass him up. They're not going to pass him up for this. Last slot, I think it's Colman Domingo. I think Sing Sing didn't do great here, but it did get 2 of the actors longlisted, and he's been showing up everywhere. So they could ignore this movie altogether, but usually when BAFTAs are lukewarm on a movie that, is doing better in the States, although is it doing better? They still go out for it in like maybe the one category that it's most prominent. So I'm having Colman Domingo in. Hugh Grant, he is a BAFTA fave, he's a British fave, but the movie, he didn't win the Globe, he didn't get SAG nominated, so I don't think he's going the distance here. I don't think he's, strong enough for me to predict him. Supporting actress, Zoe Saldana, I think she's winning here. Felicity Jones, we're going to see you here. We're going to see you here, Felicity. You better not miss the boat on this one, because we're worried. We don't know why you're, missing trains and missing deadlines, but this is going to save you, I think. This is going to save Felicity Jones. Ariana Grande for Wicked. She'll be fine. Rossellini for Conclave. That's part of the Conclave Palooza, and I don't see a reason not to have her in. Margaret Qualley, missed SAG, don't care. They like The Substance a lot. I think they're nominating it in all the essential categories, whether or not she gets Oscar. And finally, Michelle Austin, Hard Truths. Please don't forget to do her over Selena Gomez. Please do that. Michelle Austin is fantastic in the movie. Barely any critics' attention outside of that International Society of Film Critics win, which was awesome. I am a little worried about it because Hard Truths didn't do great at BAFTA. It didn't even get the Screenplay 10. I think that shows a lot of problems for the movie. So it's not impossible that she misses for Selena Gomez, who would get in the instance that Emilia Perez is just absolutely overperforming. And that might happen here. They did 15 longlist mentions, and kind of like All Quiet on the Western Front, it was just boom, 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 every damn where. If that happens, Selena Gomez might come along. But we gotta stick with Michelle Austin. If Emily Watson was, if that movie was longlisted more, maybe she'd have a shot, but everybody else is not that compelling to me. Supporting actor, we got Kieran Culkin, who's doing super well. Guy Pearce, he'll be just fine here. Yuri Borisov, everything so far. Edward Norton, same thing. They're getting in. Jeremy Strong, he got SAG. My goodness, this boy's getting in. And then I think Stanley Tucci makes a decent bit of sense. Now, people may see this nomination and freak out and think that there's like a Jesse Plemons kind of Oscar surprise, BAFTA to Oscar pipeline coming. And I would be a little concerned too. But if everybody else is here, then it's probably going to just be them. They could over-nominate BAFTA a little bit. It just kind of feels right. Everybody else, I don't think is quite there. I think Edelstein would have gotten in with the jury because they don't mind getting in younger performers. Or maybe Clarence Macklin. Denzel Washington's never been nominated before, and without the SAG nomination, he's on the bench once again. So I just think that makes the most sense. Again, really no risks in these acting categories. Original screenplay, Honora Brutalist, Substance, A Real Pain. There's no issues here. Could A Real Pain miss and just be kind of weaker over there? Maybe, but it's been so damn strong in screenplay. Like, irregardless of how it's been doing in picture, continues to be a very strong screenplay force. So I think that's in. I think Kneecap, I expect that it's actually very strong and it's going to show up in a big category. Could be editing, could be screenplay, could be both, but we're going with screenplay. It could be All We Imagine Is Light, but again, I haven't seen that be embraced as a screenplay movie yet. Now, it could be like Cold War, which got in. A Quiet Girl got in. So this is not impossible. If it got into screenplay and director here, that would be a huge threat for the Oscar. Because if you get screenplay and director at BAFTA and you're an international film, you, my friend, may be getting nominated in Best Director just like another round, just like Cold War. But I don't know that's going to happen, so I'm not predicting it right now. The Apprentice also, you know, makes sense as a screenplay nominee if they really love the movie. Let's continue. Adapted screenplay. We know Conclave's winning. We know Emilia Perez is in. If you're not predicting a complete unknown, you should be. They're going to love that thing. Dune Part 2, I think will be fine here. And then that last slot, you know, is it Nickel Boys? Could it be Sing Sing? Could it be Wicked? I do feel like they're going to nominate Wicked less than the Oscars. They're going to be a little underwhelmed by it. Kind of like with Barbie. And this is a category that is just not mandatory. It's a Broadway musical adaptation. You only nominate it if you're like obsessed with it. I don't think they are. Sing Sing is possible. Nickel Boys is possible. They didn't do great on the long list, especially Nickel Boys really underperformed. But usually, even if a movie underperforms a lot at BAFTA, a la Fabelmans on the long list, and there are just signs that they don't love it, they will throw it a bone in screenplay. That is where I think Nickel Boys will happen. It didn't do well, but it's been a strong screenplay force throughout the season. I think it's going to get WGA. And it's kind of like Beast of Southern Wild, I think. Nickel Boys did well at Critics' Choice. Then it went on to get no SAG, no other guilds. But then it does land PGA. Didn't get Golden Globes, Beast of Southern Wild didn't get Golden Globes. And BAFTAs only gave it that one screenplay nomination. So I think as long as that is going to be in Best Picture, you're going to see it get into screenplay here. If it doesn't get into screenplay here, I'm very worried. Usually a Best Picture nominee has some kind of presence at BAFTA, even if it's just like screenplay and then maybe some measly other thing. Like, that's why I have Nickel Boys in. And I can understand if you think it's, you know, actually, I don't know. I mean, Sing Sing, Wicked, and the other options aren't that compelling. So we're going with Nickel Boys here. Casting. You know, I've thought hard about this. We've been sticking to 2 rules to determine this category over the years because it's absolutely chaotic and it's very hard to predict. But last year I got 4 out of 5. We got the formula down maybe. Are we getting 4 out of 5 again this year? That's what we're trying to do. So what are the rules? Now, first of all, this is the only instance throughout the entire season that I ever use a stat against a movie. So for example, if you're saying, oh, the Golden Globes comedy actress category, like, they never nominate 4 actresses from there. That's unprecedented. So therefore, I'm going to have to figure out how to snub Erivo or Gascon. No. Them getting the nomination isn't a knock against them. You can't say that. I don't do that kind of thing. I think that that's silly. Or if someone says, oh, this did well at Critics' Choice Documentary, that means it's not going to get nominated, a la Summer of Soul. That stat exists because movies don't do well at like IDA and Cinema Eye, not because they did well at Critics' Choice. So I'm going to break that rule here because in the BAFTA casting category, which is determined by a jury, the only category left that has jury DNA, jury hands reaching in and molding this category, we got to figure out whatever kind of crazy thing we can. So the stats here are 1 film is from SAG Ensemble lineup. Last year, it was Killers of the Flower Moon. I said that it would be, despite Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was the huge BAFTA juggernaut. Very obvious that it was going to win. And yet, I said, they're not nominating that for casting. They're not. Because they're going to go 1 SAG Ensemble nominee, and it's going to be Killers of the Flower Moon. I went with that because it was the SAG Ensemble nominee with some diversity in it. They're not going to go for Whitenheimer. They're not going to go for White Clave this year. And they didn't go for the Banshees of White Sharon. They went with Killers of the Flower Moon, Everything Everywhere All at Once, King Richard, those, and Minari. Those were the examples of, you know, the lone SAG-nominated film. Now, I know that some people complain about the casting for Emilia Perez, but I think that's getting in. I think that's the one. And then Kneecap and The Apprentice, put these in. Put these in. They are included in BAFTA's long-listed 10 for Best Film, and they're not nominated at SAG Ensemble. What more do you need? What more do you need? That's what gets in. The Brutalist. I'm including this because it is not nominated in SAG Ensemble, and it's a Best Picture contender. That's what we want to see. Now, here is where the second stat that we use to predict this category falters. Normally, we see 3 Oscars Best Picture nominees land here. We only have 2. If we're going to go by only one SAG nominee, and we're going to say not Back to Black, which is what we're doing, we're not saying Back to Black, then you're left with the, Blitz, Brutalist, Apprentice, Kneecap. This only produces 2 films that are eventually going to be nominated for Best Picture. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go with the SAG stat, or are you going to go with the 3+ Best Picture nominees stat? Now, if I were to put in another Best Picture nominee here, I would put in Anora maybe, because it has a lot of great casting of new talent and talent that we haven't seen before. Rising stars. Also, Sean Baker movies I feel like are ripe for, casting consideration. A Complete Unknown makes a lot of sense too. I mean, they cast a whole lot of real life musicians. But I'm just going to cling on like a scared koala to the SAG thing. And it just makes my job easy, because then I just go Blitz, Brutalist, Apprentice, Kneecap, Amelia Perez. And the reason of Blitz, Blitz is maybe not well liked as other movies that get nominated here, so I am worried about it, but they did cast the kid. If there's one thing they do like, it's scouting new child talent. This is like that casting call for the lead boy in the McQueen movie. And I think him alone could make sense. So that's my casting 5. You may think I'm a silly goose, but that's okay. We'll see who gets 4 out of 5. All right, British film. There's like 12 movies that I would like to put in here, but I can't. So we got Conclave, Kneecap, Hard Truth, Wallace and Gromit. I'm putting in Civil War because it did really well on the long list. The Outrun, Lee, those also did well on the long list. Gladiator 2 did as well. Now beyond that, I think Blitz, it did okay on the long list. It was really just text, but it could miss. Gladiator 2 also was really just text, but I think, it got on like what, 8 or 9? That's pretty good. So for the last slot, it could be Paddington, but they don't really like that new Paddington movie. It's actually not really well received. Wicked Little Letters, I could see it. It's very British flavored. It has some of their faves in the cast. Love Lies Bleeding, very well, really acclaimed movie. Saint Maud did much better here though. We Live in Time, also a well-liked movie. Or Bird, but Bird really underperformed. Didn't get a screenplay, didn't get directing, didn't get Barry Keoghan shortlisted. No casting either. It didn't do great. So I'm finding out that Wicked Little Letters did quite well in the UK box office. I am going to put that in over We Live in Time, Love Lies Bleeding, Bird. There are other combinations of this top 10 that I could also get behind, but we got British Debut, we got Kneecap, Monkey Man, Santosh. I think those are pretty buzzy. They're probably going to get in. A lot of people are going with Bring Them Down, and I was going to do that because I know who the cast is. It premiered at TIFF, and I remember that was a thing, and these other movies I haven't heard of. But just because you've heard of a movie doesn't mean it will get nominated here. That's what I found when I looked back. What I also found is that people are predicting Sister Midnight because it was nominated at BIFA, British Independent Film Awards debut category. Now, I looked back again. I said, if something gets on the long list and it's at BIFA, are the odds good? And they're kind of all right. They're like a little 50-50. So even that, I think, is not necessarily a predicted stat. You kind of got to go off vibes. And I also found that usually when they nominate a film, it's like generally well liked on Letterboxd or whatever, most of the time. And I found that the movie The Teacher is actually quite well liked, 3.7 on Letterboxd. And so I'm going to put that on there. That 5th slot is really up to anything. Right now I'm going with, I'll go with Bring Them Down to be safe, but it might be On Failing. That was kind of my hunch. Non-English film. This is just kind of easy to me. Amelia Perez, Kneecap, All We Imagine Is Light. Those are movies that got elsewhere on the long list. And then Seat of the Sacred Fig and I'm Still Here are the 2 other biggest contenders this year. Girl with the Needle could surprise, but boy, I'd be scared of what it takes out. I mean, Fig did not do that well on the long list. Like, it underperformed, really. Part of me wonders if that could be this year's A Hero, Decision to Leave. It seems like a really in there international contender and then just misses, but I can't predict that. I gotta go with the easy 5 here. I mean, it could be Flow, it could be Girl with the Needle. It could even be La Chimera, it really could. Documentary, No Other Land at the top. I am predicting Black Box Diaries and Ibelin, just because they're, you know, they're general Oscar contenders that are, you know, in the top mix for that Oscar nomination. And I don't really see a reason to doubt them. Now, Daughters is in that mix as well, but what concerns me is that they snub stuff like Time and Descendant. You know, again, like, why did they not love Sing Sing and Nickel Boys? The most generous way of putting it is that they don't connect with African-American stories all the time, and then there are less generous ways of putting it. But that's why I don't have Daughters in here. The BB Files is about Netanyahu. It's like an expose about him or something. The UK, as I read, is a little more sympathetic towards Palestine than the US is. And the fact that they shortlisted that and No Other Land, I think that whoever is putting together these nominations in this branch, like, they may be very passionate about this issue. And also, the guy who directed this has gotten 1 or 2 other BAFTA nominations. One of them was for this WikiLeaks movie. This category is really hard to predict at BAFTA. And so I'm kind of trying to make the lineup look a little janky, because it will probably appear that way to me when it happens. And then we have Made in England, the films of Powell and Pressburger. This is the classic, like, British documentary about, you know, famous British people that we get in at BAFTA. And it's actually really, really well liked. It has a very high Rotten Tomatoes score, high audience scores, so I feel like that would get in. Now, Elton John, you gotta watch out because he's a big British presence, and they like that. The Superman story, I would not be surprised if this or Will and Harper, but not both, but one of them gets in because, like, they nominated the Michael J. Fox movie last year. But I ultimately went with a dumb rule that I came up with, which is only one movie with a colon in the title. I feel like the colon in the title suggests that your documentary is not that artistic. And usually they don't go out for more than one a year. It's very silly, but that's what I'm doing. I am Celine Dion. No thanks. Elton John, Never Too Late. Sorry. Animated film. You got Wallace and Gromit's gonna win, I think. The franchise Wallace and Gromit, between all their features, all their short films, which includes, I think, maybe like 5 or 6 instances. All those that have been nominated at BAFTA won the BAFTA. Wallace and Gromit is undefeated at BAFTA. Why the hell would I bet against this? Yes, Flo and The Wild Robot are very strong contenders, okay? But look, Wallace and Gromit, that's home turf. I think they're going to go with that. And then Inside Out 2, you know, Pixar films, they just make it in here. The Disney Pixar stuff just makes it in. Memoir of a Snail, I would love to see it, but unfortunately, I think we have, you know, Flo in here as the indie that has popped up as the favorite, and they just might not be as aware of Memoir of a Snail. Cinematography, Brutalist, Dune, A Complete Unknown. We don't have ASC, and in fact, a lot of guilds that we would have had by now to help us out are missing. But we do have the British Society of Cinematographers, who will probably go 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5. They are not someone that I would look to go 5 out of 5 here. What they did this year was Brutalist, Dune, Nosferatu, Conclave, Amelia Perez. I have a feeling that they'll do A Complete Unknown at BAFTA. I have a feeling it'll show up in a few more categories than it's like supposed to. They did nominate Pop Michael for Ford v Ferrari. Not Chicago 7, but that's fine. They nominated Bohemian Rhapsody. They nominated Theory of Everything. They like biopics. They will nominate this kind of movie in a lot of categories, I think. And so, and you know, also with the BAFTAs, I think you need to be less showy with your cinematography than you do at the Oscars. Although I think that the movie is showy enough to be nominated at Oscar as well. Nosferatu's been doing very well, and I don't know if we can deny this at this point. If it gets in here, it will probably make its way to the Oscar. If it doesn't, I have no idea. And then Conclave versus Amelia Perez. I think both have a great shot at being nominated here, and I really would love to put in all 6 of these. But we can't do that. We just can't. I don't have a reason to think that they'll snub Dune here. I just don't. And I don't think they're going to go out for anything crazy like The Substance or Anora. So boy, it's between Amelia Perez and Conclave. But I just don't think, I think Conclave's been doing a little better than Emilia Perez so far with cinematography. BAFTA's gonna like that, that's their British movie. Although I know they might go nuts for Emilia Perez. Yeah, I'm changing my mind here, I'm doing Emilia Perez. I looked at my overall tally and I said, it's not in enough categories, it needs to be in more categories. It's gonna be the most nominated movie when the day comes. Then we got editing. So I did something here. I was thinking a lot about this category. Emilia Perez, Conclave, Dune, Substance. So I don't think there's a reason to snub Dune here. They like Joe Walker a lot. Conclave and Emilia Perez, just very strong contenders, showy editing. The Substance, now, it did so well on the long list that I thought we could be in for a redemption at BAFTA. Promising Young Woman was nominated for editing at BAFTA and we didn't see it coming. And I feel like this is kind of it's kind of had a similar pickup. It's also overdue for editing appreciation. If we know that they love The Substance in craft categories, then I think that they should nominate it here. And I think they might. They really like the movie. I think it is going to show up in a couple texts that it won't show up in Oscars. Although, hopefully it does. A Complete Unknown, I just am worried that it will overperform. And they nominated Bohemian Rhapsody here. And Elvis, well, okay, those were really, really flashy with their editing. But I'm just feeling it. And where's Honora? What did I do here? Ooh, what did I do here? What I did here is I looked back and I said, oh, I'm seeing some movies that were really prominent top 2 Oscar contenders, very, very critically acclaimed, that missed here. Here they are. Parasite, Boyhood, Spotlight, Moonlight. Honora, what is the case for editing outside of being a very, very strong Best Picture movie? It's not that there. It's mostly because it's strong. Now, Honora at BAFTA, like, it kind of looks like it might be number 4 is the other problem. And so I think that could be snubbable. I just do. I think it kind of fits the bill of like what the 4 movies I just mentioned. You know, most acclaimed movie of the year, does well at like Critics' Choice and such, maybe even wins Best Picture, but doesn't get nominated at BAFTA. Now the other 2 I could see getting in are Challengers, which, you know, they love like a racing movie. And, you know, Challengers with the rhythm and the sports, maybe it's a racing movie. Maybe, like, in essence, it's a racing movie. But I can't predict Challengers for 1 nomination. I can't predict it for just editing, so I'm not going to. Now, Kneecap, actually, I think is more likely. Kneecap is very, very showy editing. If Kneecap is a big contender to them, you would nominate it for editing. But at the end of the day, this category just tends to look very Oscar-y. So I'm not going to go with it, but I am looking out for Kneecap. I think it's very possible. If you've seen the movie, you understand. Production design, I got no real, like, hunches here. Wicked, actually, Wicked could lose. Huh. Could be interesting. But, you know, that's a conversation for another day. Brutalist, Dune, Gladiator, and then Conclave. Conclave may be contemporary. It may be a little odd for them to go for something like this. But, again, I think that it's just going to get a lot of nominations at BAFTA. And people have been kind of trying to make it happen in cinema, in production design. I don't know where it will stand for Oscar, especially here and in costumes. I guess this will be a big tell because it's not surprising that this will make like contemporary guilds. It's just not surprising. So it's hard to see how well it's doing outside of critics groups. But it did get, you know, Critics' Choice nominated. So Blitz would be a great nomination. And it's actually insane that they might not do this. I'm very cautious about predicting Blitz. I feel like it might show up in a couple categories, but you also don't want to over-predict it just because they like it and it's British. Nosferatu, it could happen. Like, I just don't, you know, I just can't quite do it. Substance, they might, like, do something cool here. I mean, they nominated, you know, Pinocchio, Del Toro's Pinocchio. They do a couple of cool nominations every once in a while here, and The Substance is a contender for that. So that could happen, but I'm going with a safe 5 here. Costume design. So Wicked, Dune, Gladiator, blah, blah, blah. Then we have Nosferatu and Blitz. This is like very hesitantly what I'm going for, and here's the reason. BAFTA likes very traditional period work here. Conclave doesn't quite fit that, but again, it could get nominated because they're just loving the movie. And, you know, it being contemporary might get in the way and it might not, because the costumes are still very unique and are not something that we see every day. Beetlejuice, I had that in for a while because I feel like it's going to get nominated for the Oscar. and it is Colleen Atwood. But I just see the BAFTA, and I see them nominating stuff like, you know, Emma and Ammonite and The Dig, and very traditional costume dramas. So, you know, maybe a big showy fantasy thing like Beetlejuice could happen. But Blitz and Nosferatu kind of fit the typical period thing a little better. So I did go with them. I don't know what's going to happen, but that's what I'm doing. Makeup. I shuffled around this category like a madman. I think The Substance will win. I think Beetlejuice is probably going to get nominated. And by the way, Beetlejuice got like 4 long lists, so it'll probably get at least 1 nomination. Nosferatu, you know, when looking at the past, you know, the big 3 previous vampire makeup contenders, they nominated 2 of them. Okay. I think BAFTA's less obsessed with prosthetics than the Oscars are, hence like A Different Man not being here. And so they'll nominate like something with barely any makeup, any visible makeup, which is why I think Wicked might be fine here. Wicked has all the hairstyling and like face makeup that it's just enough for BAFTA, I think. It's just enough for them. And Dune, I don't have quite a reason to doubt that it'll miss, but I am a little worried about it getting an Oscar snub here. Emilia Perez could certainly happen. It could just get like a ton of nominations, and I think there's enough work there. But it doesn't fit the typical BAFTA thing, which I think is just like, you know, powdered faces and hair. The Apprentice, I mean, if you're considering that to the extent the BAFTAs are, this nomination makes a whole lot of sense, actually. And I really was close to putting it in. But really what I went with was like the community's top 5 on Award Expert. And, you know, that is the safe 5 if I'm being honest. A Complete Unknown could get in because they did nominate Theory of Everything and Bohemian Rhapsody. And those are, you know, just much lighter, like, prosthetic and makeup biopic work. That could get nominated. It really could. Again, I think there's a good case for the top 8 here. Maybe even Blitz. But, you know, I'm just going with what I think is a safe 5. I would like to not ruin my chances here. Visual effects. I also went back and forth a lot on this one. Dune, Apes, getting in. I think Better Man is safe. I think, you know, they like Better Man over there in the UK. I know it's flopping, but they like Robbie Williams. They know him. I think that makes sense. And I put in Alien after hesitation because BAFTA shares a love with Oscar for the space film. And there's plenty of space stuff in Alien. I think it's poised for the Oscar. I think this would be a place that it would show up before getting the Oscar nomination. You know, even though it didn't appear on any of the other long lists, I don't think that's indicative of getting in this category particularly, given their track record. Gladiator, I mean, I've been hesitant on this because I actually think Gladiator could be vulnerable here, but Napoleon getting in, I don't know if I can doubt it. I also really am tempted by Wicked because even though I think that this will come up short for the Oscar nom, BAFTA does nominate those movies that the Oscars say like, oh, that's not enough visual effects, like Poor Things or Everything Everywhere. They were nominated at BAFTA. They'll just go for things that are in Best Picture. They won't snub Best Picture contenders here as much as the Oscars will. And in fact, you know, Dunkirk, Shape of Water, Black Panther, Best Picture contenders that were snubbed at the Oscars did show up here. So that's where Wicked definitely could get in, and I'm very tempted to put it in. But I also don't feel like it fits the bill of what they nominate as much. Fantasy, animals, like, I just think that the big action spectacles like Alien and Gladiator work a little bit better here. Maybe there's something to Civil War's visual effects that I don't know about that gets that in, I don't know. But I'm just gonna go with this 5. Best sound, Dune, Complete Unknown, Wicked, Emilia Perez. Now I'm looking at the community and I am side-eyeing you guys. Like, really? You don't have a Complete Unknown and Wicked? Really? Might we remind you, BAFTA nominates anything with music in it. Tar, Rocket Man. They did West Side Story. They did Maestro. They do all the music things. Now, I also want to bring to your attention that there's a British Sound Guild. Very fun. And they nominated Dune, Complete Unknown, Wicked, Substance, Conclave. Okay? That's what they nominated. Now, this Sound Guild, I think, is more likely to go for something like Barbie, Jojo Rabbit. We're like, is that sound? And they nominated anyway. Whereas BAFTA, I think, is more likely to go with a big blockbuster film. So I'm going to say Conclave is that one that the Sound Guild goes with just because they like it. And something else we'll get in. Now, Emilia Perez, I can't doubt. Even though that actually did miss a couple big Sound Guilds, it might be the least likely of the 3 music-oriented films. I think it'll get in here at BAFTA, of course. And for me, you know, Blitz would be an amazing nomination. I just really don't know if it's safe pick. If it's safe pickles for me. So I'm not going to do that. I am between Gladiator and The Substance. Now, Gladiator really fits that traditional sound, big, epic explosion movie that they have no problem nominating. They really don't. But again, The Substance, I might want to predict it to show up in a couple tech categories. This is certainly one that it could do that. And you know, it did get that Sound Guild. And what else got the Sound Guild? Last Night in Soho, another horror movie. And it got BAFTA nominated. So maybe I'm leaning slightly Substance on this one. Maybe I am. But Gladiator is tough to say. Because this category, you know, with those 3 music films, it feels like a blockbuster like that, you know, there's a need for another one besides Dune. All right, original score. So this category is kind of insane. Without challengers here, there's just an easy 4, but not an easy 5. Brutalist, Conclave, Emilia Perez. Very safe. Wild Robot, I mean, they nominate animated films in this category. They don't really have a problem with it, so that's fine. That last slot, though, goddamn. I mean, this could be really interesting because the Oscars may or may not want to nominate Challengers or Wild Robot. So this could present a solid alternative if it is on the Oscars shortlist. You know, a lot of people are defaulting to Blitz. Oh, it's Hans Zimmer, it's Blitz, like, it makes enough sense. The score's good. Listen, Blitz, the score's like 35 minutes. Hans Zimmer doesn't get nominated for movies that aren't really, like, big. He's not like John Williams where he's a name check. He gets in for the big Nolan movies, the big blockbusters, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know that Blitz really fits here. I don't know that Blitz fits. So The Substance, though, like, here are some examples of BAFTA being kind of cool and pulling some stuff out in their score lineup, all right? Everything Everywhere was not getting appreciated in score a lot. It didn't even get Critics' Choice, who showered it. And then BAFTA comes along and puts it in. Then it got the Oscar nomination, of course. Promising Young Woman was also, that was a surprise nomination in score, too. And they even nominated Mika Levi for Under the Skin. So, when I'm looking at this category and I don't know what to do, I think it could be Nosferatu. It could be Gladiator. I don't really see it being Beetlejuice or The Outrun. I mean, The Substance is their favorite movie, right? So sometimes they go with movies they like here. And sometimes they make cool picks. Also Saltburn, like that was kind of an unexpected one. It's unconventional, it's a little odd, it doesn't feel safe, but without challengers here, I think that might be the one to go with. So I am going to do The Substance in score. So those are the BAFTA predictions. They're tomorrow. We're excited and scared. And of course, you've been watching me make these predictions on Award Expert, which is Brother Bros app, free in the App Store. You can get it in the description. And if you like this video and you want to become a member, we got fun little bonus content over there, $2 a month. Recently, I showed you a fun little SAG stat that a chart that I made and what it means. Little bonus videos for you. So check that out if you want. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Do the British like you?